The purple soil of Morgoth squished beneath Carice Wren's boots as he strode across the landing platform. Steam rose from the planet's surface, creating a perpetual haze that hung in the humid air. Poisonous flora crept along the edges of toxic rivers that snaked between massive geometric structures, the proud architecture of the Gorian Empire. From this very spot, Carice had directed the conquest of dozens of worlds. As Supreme Commander, he had watched countless species fall to Gorian might. Some had resisted with primitive weapons, others with surprisingly advanced technology. But all had eventually succumbed to the same fate: total subjugation under the mind control ray. The MCR, as it was commonly known among Gorian officers, had revolutionized warfare. No longer did conquest require massive casualties or resource-draining occupations. One blast from the planetary scale emitters, and entire populations would drop to their knees, eyes vacant, wills shattered. Within days, most species could be integrated into the Empire's rigid hierarchy. Gorians at the top, of course, with the subjugated races forming a complex pyramid of servitude below. Carice paused at the edge of the platform, gazing down at a labor camp where hundreds of six-legged Kraken hauled massive ore containers. Their once powerful bodies, evolved for the high-gravity environments of their homeworld, now served Gorian mining operations. Nearby, the more delicate Roxen, with their 4 arms and translucent skin, tended to the technical aspects of processing, their natural dexterity and keen eyesight making them perfect for detail work. "Commander Wren," a voice called from behind. Carice didn't turn immediately. He took a moment to compose his face into its usual mask of impassive authority before facing his colonial affairs advisor, Colin Velix. "What is it, Velix?" "I instructed not to be disturbed during my inspection." Velix shifted his weight anxiously, a habit Carice had always found distasteful. A Gorian officer should stand tall, confident, unwavering. "Forgive me, Commander, but I've received troubling reports from the Outer Territories. Specifically, from Quadrant 7. Carice sighed. "Another rebellion rumor? You bring these to me weekly, Velix. They're almost always exaggerated." "This one is different, sir." Velix's voice dropped. "It concerns a species we've never officially encountered. The rumors say they've repelled a Gorian scouting party decades ago." This caught Carice's attention. Failed Gorian missions were extraordinarily rare and always classified at the highest level. "What species?" "They call themselves humans. From a blue planet named Earth." Carice's eyes narrowed. "I've heard whispers of this world. Remote, resource-rich, but deemed low priority because of distance." "Yes, Commander. But the disturbing aspect is what the slaves are saying." Velix hesitated. "They claim the MCR doesn't work on humans." For a brief moment, Carice felt a flicker of unease, quickly suppressed. In his 30 cycles of service, he had never encountered a species immune to the mind control ray. The very suggestion was absurd. The MCR operated on fundamental neural principles shared by all sentient life. "Nonsense," Carice said, his voice firm. "Neural structures may vary, but consciousness itself follows universal patterns. The MCR affects the very foundation of thought." "Of course, Commander. I merely report what's being whispered among the slaves." Carice turned back to gaze over the labor yards. Below, an Eotian had collapsed, its insectoid limbs twitching from exhaustion. 2 Gorian guards approached, activated their handheld MCR devices, and the creature quickly rose, resuming its work despite its obvious physical distress. "These rumors are dangerous, Velix. They feed hope, and hope leads to inefficiency." "Precisely my concern, sir." Carice's mind worked quickly, analyzing the potential threat. Even baseless rumors could damage morale and productivity. And if any slave species believed immunity was possible, it might inspire resistance. Such thoughts must be crushed before they spread. "Where is Chief Scientist Corps?" Carice asked. "In the central laboratory, sir, testing the new MCR upgrades." "Good." Carice turned fully toward Velix now, his decision made. "Prepare a mission to this Earth. Bring me one of these humans. We'll demonstrate the power of our technology before representatives of all subjugated worlds. Felix's eyes widened. A public demonstration? Indeed. We'll put their supposed immunity to the test. When a human kneels before us like all others, these whispers will die. Evolution cannot be denied, Felix. The strong control the weak. This is the natural order. Kari's brushed past his advisor. If we stop advancing, we become extinct. Remember that. As Kari's marched toward the central laboratory, his resolve hardened. No species could resist the inevitable tide of Gorian dominance. These humans would learn that truth, just as all others had before them. Behind him, Felix watched his commander's retreating figure with a troubled expression. Unlike Kari's, he had seen the unredacted reports of that long-ago scouting mission to Earth. But he knew better than to mention those details now. Some truths were best left buried, at least until they couldn't be ignored any longer. The central laboratory hummed with energy as Terra Core adjusted the calibration on the latest MCR prototype. Her four-fingered hands moved with precision over the control panel, her concentration absolute. Scientist Core, Kari's voice cut through the sterile air of the lab. Terra straightened immediately, her pale blue skin flushing slightly darker in the presence of the Supreme Commander. Commander Wren, what an unexpected honor. She gestured to the device on the testing platform. I was just completing the final adjustments to the Mark 7 portable MCR. Its range and penetration are 40% greater than the previous model. Kari's approached the sleek, handheld device. It resembled a small cannon, its surface a dull black that seemed to absorb light rather than reflect it. I have a special task for your new creation, Scientist Core, Kari said. How soon can it be ready for field deployment? Terra's eyes lit up. It's ready now, Commander. I was about to submit my final report recommending immediate production. Excellent. I'm authorizing a mission to a planet called Earth. We're going to capture a member of their species, humans, they call themselves, and bring one back for study and demonstration. Terra's expression shifted to curiosity. May I ask why this particular species has gained your attention? Kari's considered how much to reveal. Terra Core was brilliant, but sometimes questioned orders more than he preferred. Still, she would need to understand the stakes. There are rumors that humans may be resistant to MCR technology. I want these myths dispelled with a public demonstration. Rather than appearing concerned, Terra's expression transformed into one of scientific fascination. Resistant? That's theoretically impossible, but what an intriguing challenge. If true, studying their neural architecture could lead to significant MCR advancements. So you'll prepare the device for the mission? Kari's asked. Better than that, Terra replied. I request permission to create a specialized version. If there's even the slightest chance these humans have unique neural pathways, I want to be prepared. Kari's nodded approvingly. This was why he tolerated Terra's occasional insubordination. Her ambition matched his own. You have 2 planetary cycles. I've already ordered General Malik to prepare his elite squad for departure. I'll have it ready, Commander. Terra turned back to her workstation, already lost in the possibilities. If these humans truly have some resistance, we'll overcome it. Evolution demands adaptation. Indeed it does, Kari said, satisfied with her response. Remember, failure is not an option. The stability of our empire depends on absolute faith in our technology. As Kari's left the laboratory, Terra's mind was already racing with modifications. A species resistant to mind control? Impossible. Yet the scientific challenge thrilled her. If she could crack this puzzle, her position in the Gorian hierarchy would be unassailable. 2 cycles later, the black hull of the Gorian stealth vessel rose from the swampy launch pad. Inside, General Malik reviewed the mission parameters with his team, while Terra Core secured the specialized MCR device in its containment field. Remember, Malik instructed his soldiers, we need one specimen alive and minimally damaged. Our intelligence suggests they're physically fragile, but potentially unpredictable. As the ship pierced Morgotha's atmosphere, Kari's watched from his command center. Deep within, a tiny seed of doubt tried to take root, but he ruthlessly crushed it. No matter what anomalies these humans might present, the outcome was already determined. The mind control ray had never failed, and it never would. "Bring me a human," he whispered to the departing ship. "Show our empire what true power means." The sleek Gorian vessel emerged from hyperspace at the edge of Earth's solar system. Inside, General Malik studied the blue-green planet displayed on the central view screen. Primitive defenses, he noted, observing the scattered satellites and space stations orbiting the world. No energy shields, minimal detection capability. His second-in-command, Vrax, manipulated the scanner controls. Their population centers are densely packed. Recommend targeting a medium-sized urban area to minimize witnesses while ensuring multiple capture options. Malik nodded in agreement. Scientist Core, any preference for specimen type? Tara looked up from her final adjustments to the MCR device. Adult, physically mature. Beyond that, our data on human subspecies is limited. Choose one that appears healthy. The ship's cloaking field activated as they entered Earth's atmosphere, rendering them invisible to the planet's detection systems. They descended toward a coastal city where thousands of humans had gathered in what appeared to be some kind of demonstration or protest. "Perfect," Malik said. "High population density, multiple escape routes, and existing chaos to mask our presence." The ship hovered 50 meters above a park adjacent to the gathering. Malik turned to his team. "Remember your training. Minimal interaction, no unnecessary casualties. We want one specimen and a clean extraction." The team descended on gravity discs, landing in formation while the ship maintained its position overhead. The moment they touched down, their presence caused immediate reaction. Humans pointed, shouted, and quickly began moving away from the armored Gorians. "They recognize us as non-human," Vrax noted with surprise. "More perceptive than expected." A nearby human raised a communication device, presumably to document their presence. Malik signaled, and one of his soldiers disabled it with a precision energy pulse. This act transformed the crowd's curiosity into panic. Some humans fled, while others, surprisingly, began throwing objects, stones, bottles, even parts of the barricades from their demonstration. Primitive but aggressive, Malik observed as the projectiles bounced harmlessly off their armor. "Tara, is the MCR ready?" Tara activated the device, which emitted a low hum. "Ready, General. Target the main crowd. Let's simplify our extraction." Tara aimed the MCR and fired. A pulse of invisible energy washed over the nearest humans. Almost immediately, they froze in place, their eyes glazing over as their neural pathways succumbed to the control wave. All except one. A male human at the edge of the affected area staggered slightly, but remained standing, blinking rapidly as if fighting off a sudden drowsiness. He looked around at his immobilized companions, then back at the Gorian team with an expression of dawning comprehension. "You're them," he called out, his voice surprisingly steady. "The aliens my grandfather talked about. The ones who came 60 years ago." Malik and Tara exchanged glances. "Interesting," Tara murmured. "He's showing resistance to the field effect." "Target him specifically," Malik ordered. Tara adjusted the MCR's focus and fired directly at the human. He winced, clutching his head momentarily, but remained conscious. "My name is Adam Pierce," the human said, taking an unsteady step forward. "And whatever you're trying to do to my head, it won't work. My family has always been different. Gramps said your mind tricks didn't work on him either." Malik had heard enough. "Take him," he commanded. Two soldiers launched forward on gravity boosters, flanking Adam before he could react. Though he fought with surprising strength, the Gorians easily subdued him, securing his limbs with energy restraints. "Let me go," Adam shouted as they lifted him toward the ship. Around them, the other humans began to recover from the MCR's effects, but too slowly to intervene. Once aboard, Adam was secure in the holding cell, while Tara examined the MCR device with a troubled expression. "Problems, Scientist Core?" Malik asked. "The device functioned perfectly," she replied. Yet he demonstrated significant resistance. "This shouldn't be possible. Could it be a fluke?" An individual anomaly? Tara's fingers danced over the diagnostic panel. Possibly. Or perhaps. Her voice trailed off as she considered the implications. I need to examine him directly once we return to Morgoth. As the ship accelerated away from Earth, leaving behind confused and terrified witnesses, Adam Pierce sat in his cell, breathing heavily. The initial wave of mental assault had left him dizzy and nauseous, but his thoughts remained his own. He remembered his grandfather's stories, tales of strange visitors that everyone had dismissed as the delusions of an old man. Now Adam knew the truth, and despite his fear, a fierce curiosity burned within him. Who were these beings? What do they want? And most importantly, why couldn't they control his mind when everyone else had fallen? As the ship entered hyperspace, Adam pressed his hand against the transparent cell wall, watching the stars streak into lines. Whatever waited for him on their homeworld, he was determined to find a way back and to warn Earth about what he'd discovered. The vast processing plant stretched across the northern quadrant of Morgoth's capital city, its massive pipes spewing greenish vapor into the already hazy atmosphere. Inside, thousands of enslaved beings worked in perfect, silent coordination, a testament to the efficiency of the MCR system. Kraken hauled massive containers of raw materials, their 6 muscular legs straining under loads that would crush most species. Their eyes, once bright with intelligence, now stared vacantly ahead as they followed their programmed routines. Nearby, Roxan workers used their 4 arms to manipulate complex machinery, sorting minerals with machine-like precision despite their organic nature. Overhead, Eotian overseers moved on insectoid limbs along suspended walkways, their natural hive mind consciousness now rewired to serve Gorian interests. They monitored productivity without emotion, reporting inefficiencies to their masters without concern for the welfare of fellow slaves. This was the reality of Morgoth, a world where dozens of conquered species coexisted in a horrifically efficient ecosystem of exploitation. Adam Pierce was escorted through these labor zones and restraints, his human eyes wide with horror at the vacant expressions of the slaves. 2 Gorian guards flanked him, their postures rigid with alertness despite his secured state. "What have you done to them?" Adam asked, his voice hoarse. "They're like zombies." The guard to his right snorted. "The human speaks as if it understands civilization. These lesser beings serve their evolutionary purpose. They exist to support the advancement of superior species." "Superior?" Adam challenged. "You need mind control to keep them working. Doesn't sound very superior to me." The guard's hand tightened on his weapon, but the other intervened. "Enough. Dr. Core is waiting." They led Adam to a sterile white facility that contrasted sharply with the industrial grimness of the labor zones. Inside, Tara Core stood beside a complex apparatus that resembled a medical examination chair surrounded by scanning equipment. "Secure him," she instructed, not looking up from her instruments. The guards forced Adam into the chair, binding his limbs with energy restraints that hummed with power. "I've been looking forward to studying you, human," Tara said, finally turning to face him. "You present an intriguing anomaly." "Glad to be of service," Adam replied sarcastically. "Always happy to be a lab rat for alien scientists." A flicker of amusement crossed Tara's face. "Your species uses humor as a defense mechanism." "Interesting." She approached with a handheld scanner. "I'm going to examine your neural patterns now. This won't harm you, but resistance is pointless." As the scanner passed over his head, Adam felt a slight tingling sensation. Tara's eyes narrowed as she studied the results. "Fascinating," she murmured. "Your brain structure has unusual properties, particularly in the frontal lobe and limbic system. There's a resistance pattern I've never encountered before." "Lucky me," Adam said, though his heart was racing. "So what happens now?" "More tests until you figure out how to control me too." Tara set down her scanner. "Commander Wren has other plans. You're to be the centerpiece of a demonstration, proof that no species can resist Gorian technology. And if I do resist?" Tara's expression hardened. "Then we'll simply have to develop a new version of the MCR." Evolution demands adaptation, human. Your resistance is merely a puzzle to be solved. Or maybe it's proof that your whole superior species thing is garbage, Adam countered. Before Terra could respond, the laboratory doors slid open and Karis Ren entered. His tall figure dominated the room immediately, and Adam noticed how Terra's posture stiffened in his presence. "Is this the human specimen?" Karis asked, approaching with measured steps. "Yes, Commander. His name is Adam Pierce." Karis studied Adam with cold curiosity. "Has it shown the rumored resistance?" "Unfortunately, yes," Terra admitted. The portable MCR had minimal effect during capture, and preliminary scans show unusual neural architecture. For a moment, concern flashed across Kari's face before his expression returned to impassive authority. "Can you overcome this resistance?" "Given time, certainly," Terra replied. "But the demonstration is scheduled for tomorrow's cycle. With the current MCR configuration, I cannot guarantee complete control." Kari's jaw tightened. "This is unacceptable, Dr. Kaur. The demonstration must proceed as planned. Representatives from all major slave planets will be present. The rumors must be dispelled." "I understand, Commander, but the science—" "Find a solution." Karis cut her off. "Use the primary MCR array if necessary. No single organism can withstand its full power." Adam watched this exchange with growing apprehension. "Hey, I'm right here. Maybe ask me if I want to be part of your little show." Both Gorians turned to him as if surprised to be addressed by a test subject. "Your consent is irrelevant," Karis stated flatly. "You will serve the Empire by demonstrating the futility of resistance." "And if I don't?" Karis smiled coldly. "Then you will serve the Empire by helping us perfect a new version of the MCR. Either way, your purpose here is decided." As Karis turned to leave, he addressed Terra once more. "The demonstration begins at primary alignment. Have a human ready." After the commander departed, Terra turned back to her instruments, her movements betraying frustration. "He doesn't understand," she muttered, almost to herself. "Neural reconfiguration can't be rushed." Adam seized on this opening. "Sounds like your boss isn't big on scientific limitations." Terra glanced at him with irritation. "Commander Ren understands the bigger picture. The Empire's stability depends on absolute control. Even the suggestion that a species might resist the MCR could inspire rebellion." "Maybe that'll be a good thing," Adam said. "All those slaves out there don't exactly look happy." "Happiness is inefficient," Terra replied automatically, though Adam noticed a flicker of uncertainty in her eyes. "The controlled species are more productive and suffer less under MCR guidance. They no longer experience fear, anxiety, or the burden of choice." "That's not living," Adam argued. "That's just existing." Terra abruptly turned away. "Prepare the human for neural mapping," she instructed the guards. "I need complete baseline readings before tomorrow's demonstration." As the guard approached with additional equipment, Adam realized he needed to be strategic. Fighting now would accomplish nothing. He needed to understand his situation better and find any potential weaknesses in the system. When the neural probes were attached to his temples, Adam deliberately relaxed, giving the appearance of cooperation. He needed Terra to believe he was resigned to his fate while he gathered information and planned his next move. The vast amphitheater of the Gorian High Command stood open to Morgoth's hazy yellow sky, its stone tiers filled with thousands of Gorian officials and representatives. At strategic points throughout the audience, small groups of various slave species sat under heavy guard. Leaders or bureaucrats from conquered worlds brought to witness the demonstration. Karis Ren stood on the central platform, resplendent in ceremonial armor that gleamed despite the dim light. Behind him, a massive version of the Gorian Empire's symbol, a spiral galaxy with a spear through its center, projected into the air. "Citizens of the glorious Empire," Karis' voice boomed across the amphitheater. "We gather today to witness the continued evolution of our dominance. Some among our conquered territories have whispered doubts about our supreme technology, the mind control ray that has brought peace and productivity to a dozen worlds. Murmurs rippled through the audience as Kari's continued. Today, we will demonstrate once again that no species can stand against the march of progress. We will show that resistance is not merely futile. It is biologically impossible. At his signal, a platform rose from below the stage level. On it stood three beings: a kraken, its 6 legs trembling slightly; a roxen, for arms crossed against its translucent chest; and an Eotian, its insectoid features clicking nervously. First, observe subject from previously conquered worlds, Kari's announced. Terra Core stepped forward, operating a control panel. A beam of invisible energy pulsed from emitters surrounding the amphitheater. Immediately, all three beings dropped to their knees, heads bowed, eyes vacant. Rise, Kari's commanded. They stood in perfect unison. Kneel. They knelt as one. This is the most advanced version of our MCR technology, Terra explained to the audience. It interfaces directly with neural pathways common to all sentient life, overriding individual while maintaining necessary cognitive functions. The demonstration continued with the three beings performing increasingly complex tasks in perfect synchronization. Throughout the audience, representatives of slave worlds watched with undisguised terror, while Gorians nodded in satisfaction. Now, Kari's announced, his voice dropping to a dramatic register. We present a new subject, a member of a species from the distant planet Earth. Some have claimed this species might possess resistance to our technology. A second platform rose, bearing Adam Pierce. His restraints had been partially removed, allowing limited movement. He stood straight, eyes scanning the massive crowd before him. This human, Kari's continued, will now demonstrate that no biological entity can resist the evolutionary supremacy of Gorian science. Terra stepped forward again, adjusting her controls. Full spectral alignment, she announced. Maximum intensity. The MCR emitters hummed with increased power. Adam felt the wave hit him, stronger than before, like a physical pressure against his consciousness. His vision blurred, and he staggered slightly. The audience leaned forward, watching intently as Adam struggled to remain standing. Sweat beaded on his forehead as he fought against the mental invasion. Slowly, visibly fighting each movement, Adam's knees began to bend. His eyes grew, unfocused as the MCR's influence deepened. I serve, he mumbled, the words seeming to be dragged from him. Kari smiled triumphantly. You see, even this supposedly resistant species succumbs to our technology. There is no. Suddenly, Adam's eyes cleared. With a visible effort, he straightened his legs and stood upright again. Nice try, he gasped, his voice strained but defiant. But all you're doing is giving me a headache. A shocked silence fell over the amphitheater. Terra frantically adjusted her controls. Increasing power to maximum safe levels, she announced, her voice tight with tension. The beam intensified. Adam grimaced, dropping to one knee again. But then, with what appeared to be tremendous effort, he pushed himself back to his feet. Your mind tricks might work on others, he panted, but humans, we're different. We resist. Throughout the audience, murmurs turned to exclamations of disbelief. The slave representatives stared with undisguised hope, while Gorian officials turned to each other in confusion. Kari's face had transformed from confident authority to barely controlled rage. Scientist Core, he hissed, explain this failure. Before Terra could respond, Adam made his move. With the MCR focused to maximum on him, the guards had momentarily relaxed their vigilance. He lunged sideways, tackling the nearest Gorian and wrestling away its weapon. Chaos erupted in the amphitheater. Gorian guards rushed toward the stage as Adam fired the captured weapon at the MCR control panel. Sparks exploded from the damaged equipment as the mental pressure suddenly released. The human has disabled the local emitter, someone shouted. Taking advantage of the confusion, Adam sprinted across the stage toward a landing pad where several small Gorian vessels were docked for the high-ranking officials. Behind him, The three enslaved beings on the demonstration platform blinked in confusion as the MCR's effect temporarily wavered. The Kraken shook its massive head, a flicker of awareness returning to its eyes. Alarms blared throughout the complex as Adam reached the nearest vessel. Having observed Gorian technology during his captivity, he had a basic understanding of their systems. He slammed his hand on the access panel, and to his surprise, the door slid open. Apparently, security was rarely needed on a world where all non-Gorians were mind-controlled. Inside, Adam quickly oriented himself to the control system. It was similar to the ship that had brought him from Earth, with intuitive pictographic interfaces. As Gorian guards approached, firing energy weapons that scorched the hull, Adam activated the engines. The small craft lurched upward, its automated systems preventing a collision with the amphitheater's structure as it rose into Morgoth's yellow sky. On the ground below, the scene had descended into unprecedented chaos. Without the MCR's stabilizing influence, some of the slave representatives were showing signs of independent thought. Aroxin had overturned a decorative pillar, while an Eotian was chittering rapidly to its fellows in what appeared to be its native language. Kari's Wren stood frozen on the central platform, watching as the stolen vessel disappeared into the clouds. His carefully orchestrated demonstration had transformed into the Empire's worst nightmare, proof that the MCR could be resisted and that a controlled slave could escape. "Secure the perimeter," he finally shouted. "All planetary defenses target that ship." But it was too late. Adam had already plotted a course out of Morgoth's atmosphere, pushing the small vessel to its maximum acceleration. Behind him, the yellow clouds of the alien world receded as stars became visible. In the stolen ship's cockpit, Adam allowed himself a moment of exhilarated relief before reality set in. He had escaped immediate danger, but he was alone in an alien vessel, in a hostile empire, with only the vaguest idea of how to get back to Earth. The navigation system showed hundreds of star systems, none with names he recognized. Adam had studied astronomy as a hobby, but nothing had prepared him for the reality of interstellar navigation. One problem at a time, he muttered to himself, setting the ship on a course away from Morgoth. First, he needed distance. Then he could figure out his next move. As the ship accelerated to light speed, Adam thought about what he had witnessed and what it meant. The Gorians controlled dozens of species across who knew how many planets. And now they knew about Earth. Worse, they knew that humans could resist their primary means of control. It was only a matter of time before they developed countermeasures. Earth needed to be warned. Somehow, he had to find his way home, not just to save himself, but to prepare his planet for what might be coming. The impact of Adam's escape reverberated through the corridors of Gorian power like a seismic shock. Never before had a demonstration of empire. Technology failed so publicly, and never before had the results spread so quickly. Within days, reports arrived from colony worlds of increased resistance. On Krykos, the Kraken homeworld, a labor processing center had experienced a complete shutdown when workers simply stopped moving, standing immobile despite the MCR's commands. On 3 other planets, isolated incidents of violence against Gorian overseers had been reported, unthinkable before the demonstration. In his private chambers, Kari's Wren received these reports with growing dread. The perfect machine of empire that he had helped build and maintain was showing signs of systemic failure. "How bad is it?" he asked Colm Velix, who stood nervously before him with the latest intelligence update. "Concerning Commander," Velix replied, choosing his words carefully. "The colonial governors are reporting increased MCR calibration requirements. Slaves who were once fully controlled now require higher power settings." "And the rumors?" Velix hesitated. "Spreading rapidly, sir. The story of a human's resistance has reached every major colony. Some versions claim he defeated a dozen guards in combat. Others say he destroyed the entire MCR network." Kari slammed his fist on the desk. Exaggerations and lies. He was one specimen who showed partial resistance to a portable unit. "Of course, Commander," Velix agreed quickly. But perception is becoming reality. The mere belief that resistance is possible has inspired problems. Kari's turned to gaze out the viewport at the sprawling capital city below. Even here on Morgoth, he had noticed subtle changes. Slaves moving more slowly, sometimes pausing in their tasks as if momentarily lost in thought. The perfectly synchronized machine of Empire was developing tiny, dangerous hiccups. "Where is Scientist Core?" he demanded. "In the central laboratory, sir. She's been working continuously since the incident, analyzing the human's neural scans. In her progress?" Felix looked down at his datapad. "She reports significant breakthroughs in understanding the human resistance mechanism. However, she estimates at least 2 full cycles before a modified MCR can be ready for testing. 2 cycles, too long. Already, the cracks were showing. If knowledge of the human's escape continued to spread, those cracks would widen into chasms. Send additional security forces to all major processing centers," Kari's ordered. "Any slave showing signs of resistance is to be immediately terminated. We must contain this until Core develops a solution." "Understood, Commander." After Felix departed, Kari's remained at the viewport, his thoughts darker than they had been in decades of service. The perfect system, the evolutionary destiny of the Gorians to rule lesser species, was being threatened by a single human who had somehow slipped through their grasp. Somewhere in the vastness of space, Adam Pierce was flying a stolen Gorian vessel, perhaps already trying to reach his homeworld. If he succeeded, if Earth learned of the Gorian Empire's existence and its vulnerability, Kari's hands clenched into fists. He had built his career, his entire philosophical worldview, on the principle that evolution favored the strong, the advanced, the controlling. That the Gorian mastery of neural technology represented the pinnacle of civilization. For the first time, doubt gnawed at the edges of his certainty. What if they had been wrong? What if the human resistance was not a fluke, but a fundamental challenge to Gorian supremacy? He pushed the thought away. No. The MCR would be adapted. The human would be recaptured. The natural order would be restored. It had to be. The alternative was unthinkable. In the lower levels of the capital city, far from the opulent chambers of Gorian leadership, a different kind of meeting was taking place. In a maintenance tunnel designed for Roxan workers, 3 figures huddled in whispered conversation. Arden Fell, a Gorian scientist who had long harbored doubts about Empire policy, passed a data crystal to a Kryken maintenance supervisor. "These are the access codes for the Eastern Quadrant," Arden whispered. "The security protocols have been temporarily lowered due to a system upgrade." The Kryken, named Vorks, took the crystal with one of his smaller handling appendages. "And the guards? Minimal tonight. Most security forces have been redirected to the processing centers after the incident." The third figure, an Eotian communication specialist, clicked its mandibles softly. "Word spreads through all networks," it said in the halting Gorian language. "Human resistance gives hope. Many now question. Many now remember life before control." Arden nodded grimly. "The Empire is vulnerable for the first time in generations. But we must be cautious. Kari's Wren will respond with brutal efficiency to any overt resistance." "What of the human?" Works asked. "The one who escaped? Still at large," Arden replied. "Tracking systems lost him at the edge of the Vandar Nebula. He could be anywhere by now. Or he could be heading back to Earth." The Eotian suggested, its compound eyes reflecting the dim maintenance lighting. "To warn his kind. If he succeeds," Vorks said, his massive frame shifting anxiously, "the Gorians will surely retaliate against his world." Arden's expression darkened. "Yes, Kari's won't allow any threat to Empire stability to persist. He would rather destroy a species entirely than admit the MCR has limitations." The 3 unlikely allies fell silent, each contemplating the implications. For decades, the conquered species had accepted their fate, their wills suppressed by the MCR technology. But now a spark had been lit. The possibility of resistance had been demonstrated before thousands of witnesses. "We need more information," Arden finally said, "about these humans, about their neural structure. If they truly possess natural resistance to the MCR, perhaps that knowledge could help free others. Dangerous, the Eotian clicked. Dr. Core works day and night in laboratory. Soon may find way to control humans too. Then we must act quickly, Vork's decided. My kind have workers in the ventilation systems near the central laboratory. Perhaps we can access Dr. Core's research. Art nodded grimly. Do what you can. In the meantime, I'll try to gather more allies among my own people. Not all Gorians approve of the Empire's methods, though few dare speak openly. As they parted ways, each returning to their assigned roles within the seemingly perfect machine of Gorian society, a new current was flowing beneath the surface. Hope, dangerous and electric, spreading from mind to mind, even as the MSAR struggled to maintain control. Far from Morgoth, Adam Pierce was grappling with the complexities of interstellar navigation. The Gorian vessel he'd stolen was designed for short-range governmental transport, not long-distance travel. Its systems were alien, and while the visual interfaces were relatively intuitive, the star maps meant little to him. He had managed to put substantial distance between himself and Morgoth, hiding within the nebulous gases of what the ship's computer called the Vandar region. But fuel reserves were limited, and he had no way to replenish them. Adam slumped in the pilot's chair, rubbing his temples. The residual effects of the MCR exposure still lingered, occasional headaches, moments of disorientation. But his mind remained his own. Why? He asked aloud, staring at the swirling cosmic gases outside the viewport. Why am I resistant when others aren't? His grandfather's stories came back to him, tales that the family had dismissed as the ramblings of an old man. Claims of strange visitors, of mental attacks that had failed, of a spacecraft that had appeared and disappeared in the night. No one had believed him. But now Adam understood that his grandfather had encountered Gorians before and had somehow resisted their control technology just as Adam had. Was it genetic? Some quirk of human neural architecture that ran in his family line? Or was it something broader, something that all humans might share to some degree? The ship's computer chirped, interrupting his thoughts. A proximity alert. Something was approaching. A massive vessel, dwarfing his small craft. Adam quickly activated the ship's limited cloaking technology, hoping it would be enough. On the scanner, he watched the larger ship pass by his position. Not Gorian in design, its hull decorated with swirling patterns that reminded him of tribal markings. A non-Gorian, space-faring civilization? The implications were staggering. Perhaps there were allies out here, other species who had managed to avoid Gorian conquest. Making a split-second decision, Adam deactivated the cloak and sent a short-range communication signal, the universal distress beacon that he'd discovered in the ship's emergency protocols. For long minutes, there was no response. The alien ship continued on its course, apparently ignoring his signal. Then, abruptly, it altered direction, turning back toward his position. Adam's heart raced. He had no weapons, no way to defend himself if these beings proved hostile. But he also had few options left. The communication system activated, displaying symbols he couldn't read. Then, through the speakers came a voice, halting but recognizably speaking English. Gorian vessel, you are identified. Why do you signal distress in prohibited space? Adam leaned toward the transmitter. I'm not Gorian. I'm a human from Earth. I escaped their captivity and stole this vessel. A long pause followed. Human, Earth. The voice finally responded. These terms not in our translator. Prove you not Gorian deception. I don't know how to prove it, Adam admitted. But the Gorians tried to use their mind control technology on me, and it failed. That's why they captured me. They wanted to. Study why I could resist. Another pause, longer this time. Then, approach coordinates follow. Any hostile action will result in immediate destruction. Navigation data appeared on Adam's screen, a path to a docking position alongside the larger vessel. With few alternatives, Adam guided his stolen ship toward what he hoped would be salvation rather than a new form of captivity. As the two ships connected, Adam stood nervously by the airlock. Would these aliens be humanoid? Completely alien? Friendly or hostile? The airlock cycled open to reveal three tall, slender beings. Their skin was a mottled pattern of blues and greens, and they had 4 arms rather than 2, but otherwise their body structure was surprisingly humanoid. Most strikingly, their eyes, 3 per individual, arranged in a triangle pattern, showed clear intelligence and emotion. "I am Nixtalon," the central figure said in that same halting English. "Chief Scout of Free Roxen Collective." Adam recognized the species name. "Roxen, you're one of the species enslaved by the Gorians." Nixtalon's 3 eyes blinked in unison. "Some enslaved. Some escaped before Mind Ray deployed. We maintain hidden civilization. We resist." Hope surged through Adam. "Then you understand what I'm facing. The Gorians abducted me, tried to use their mind control on me during a public demonstration, but I resisted and escaped." The Roxen exchanged glances with each other, their extra sets of arms moving in what seemed to be a form of supplementary communication. "If truth you speak," Nixtalon finally said, "great importance you hold. Follow now. Council must hear your story." As Adam stepped aboard the Roxen vessel, he felt a weight lift from his shoulders. He was still impossibly far from Earth, still faced with the daunting task of warning his home planet about the Gorian threat. But he was no longer alone in the vastness of space. Others fought against the empire of mind control, and perhaps together they could find a way to defeat it. Back on Morgoth, Terra Core stared at the results of her latest simulation with growing frustration. For days she had been analyzing the neural scans taken from Adam Pierce, comparing them with the vast database of species the Gorians had encountered and subjugated. The human brain was not remarkably different in its basic architecture from many other sentient species. Yet something about its specific neural pathway configuration created a natural resistance to the MCR frequency patterns. "Another failure," she muttered, discarding the latest attempt at recalibration. The laboratory door slid open, and Karis Wren entered. His usually immaculate appearance had deteriorated slightly. Uniform less precisely pressed, posture less rigidly perfect. The public embarrassment and subsequent colonial unrest had taken their toll. "Progress, Dr. Core," he demanded without preamble. Terra gestured to the display screens showing neural comparison models. "I've isolated the resistance factors in the human's frontal lobe structures. They create a natural dampening field against our standard MCR frequencies. And the solution? Theoretically, a complete reconfiguration of the MCR broadcast pattern. But implementation is proving difficult. Each adjustment I make seems to reduce effectiveness on other species while only minimally improving human susceptibility." Kari's expression darkened. "Unacceptable. The situation in the colonies deteriorates by the day. 6 major processing centers have reported significant productivity drops. 2 outlying governors have requested additional military support to maintain control." Terra straightened, meeting his gaze directly. "Commander, we may need to consider the possibility that full-spectrum control of humans is not immediately achievable." "Every species can be controlled," Kari snapped. "It is the natural order. The strong dominate the weak. With respect, Commander, perhaps our definition of strong requires adjustment. If the human brain has evolved natural defenses against neural interference, is that not its own form of strength?" For a moment, Karis looked as though he might strike her. Then, with visible effort, he regained his composure. "You have one more cycle, Scientist Core. Produce results, or you will be replaced." He turned to leave, then paused. "And Terra, failure is not an option. Not just for your career, but for the future of our species. If word continues to spread that our technology can be resisted, everything we've built will collapse." After he departed, Terra returned to her simulations with renewed determination. Yet deep within, a seed of doubt had taken root. What if the humans represented something the Gorian philosophy couldn't account for? What if true evolutionary advancement wasn't about control at all, but about resilience against it? She pushed the dangerous thought aside. Such questions were irrelevant. She had a task to complete, and her future depended on its success. Adam stood before the Roxen Council. 7 elderly members of the species, their mottled skin faded to pale pastels with age, their movements deliberately slow and precise. For hours, he had recounted everything he knew about Earth, about his abduction, about his experience with the MCR and subsequent escape. The Roxen had listened with their complete attention, occasionally conferring among themselves in their native language, a complex combination of sounds and arm movements that Adam couldn't begin to decode. Finally, the central council member, who had introduced herself as Elder Vasorin, addressed him. "Your account confirms what our intelligence network has long suspected," she said, her command of English noticeably better than Ixtalan's. "The Gorians' control is not absolute. Their technology has limitations. But why humans?" Adam asked. "What makes us different?" Elder Vasorin gestured with her upper right arm, and a holographic display appeared in the center of the council chamber. It showed a rotating image of what Adam recognized as a human brain, though highlighted with patterns and structures he didn't understand. "Our scientists have analyzed the data from your ship's memory banks, the scans taken during your captivity. Humans possess a unique neural architecture in your frontal lobes and limbic system, a natural resistance to the frequencies used by the MCR. Is it all humans, or just me?" "The data suggests a spectrum of resistance," another council member explained. "You appear to have exceptionally strong natural shields, but the analysis indicates most humans would demonstrate at least partial resistance." Adam absorbed this information, its implications staggering. "Then Earth, my home planet, could potentially resist Gorian invasion?" "Perhaps," Vasorin cautioned, "but do not underestimate the Gorians. They have conquered dozens of worlds, adapted their technology to overcome countless biological defenses. Even now, their scientists likely work to recalibrate the MCR to overcome human resistance." "Then I need to warn Earth," Adam insisted, "before the Gorians return in force." The council members exchanged glances, and Adam sensed a tension in the room. "We understand your desire to return home," Vasorin said carefully, "but we must consider the broader strategic implications. The Free Roxen Collective has survived for generations by remaining hidden, by making careful, measured moves against Gorian expansion." "What are you saying?" "The Gorians already know of Earth's existence. They know at least some humans can resist the MCR. The demonstration you escaped was witnessed by representatives from many subjugated worlds. News of your resistance has spread, inspiring unrest throughout the Empire." Another council member leaned forward. "You have become a symbol, Adam Pierce, the living proof that Gorian control can be broken." Adam felt the weight of expectation settling on his shoulders. "I'm not a revolutionary. I just want to get home and warn my people." "Perhaps you could do both," Vasorin suggested. "The Free Collective has operatives on many worlds, including several within the Gorian power structure itself. We've been fighting a shadow war for generations, gathering information, performing small acts of sabotage, helping individuals escape when possible. But never a direct confrontation," Adam noted. "We lack the numbers, the weapons, and most importantly, the hope," the elder admitted. "But now, with proof that the MCR can be resisted, the calculus has changed." The holographic display shifted, showing a map of what Adam assumed was this sector of the galaxy. Dozens of worlds were highlighted in various colors. "We propose an alliance," Vasorin continued. "Help us understand human resistance to the MCR. Work with our scientists to develop technology that might shield other species as well. In return, we will commit our resources to helping you return to Earth, not just to warn your people, but to forge a new coalition against Gorian expansion." Adam stared at the galactic map, the enormity of what they were suggesting overwhelming him. He had been thrust from a simple life on Earth into the center of an interstellar conflict. Worlds he'd never heard of, species he couldn't have imagined. Their futures might now depend on decisions he made. "I'm not a diplomat or a scientist," he said finally. "I'm just an ordinary person who happened to have the right kind of brain." "Sometimes," Elder Vasorin replied, "ordinary individuals in extraordinary circumstances are exactly what history requires. You did not ask for this role, Adam Pierce, but you may be the catalyst that changes the course of 100 worlds. Seeing no alternative and recognizing the truth in the elder's words, Adam nodded his agreement. I'll help however I can, but I want your promise that Earth's protection will be a priority. My people have no idea what's coming. Agreed, Vasorin said solemnly. Let this mark the beginning of a new chapter in our long struggle. The day we move from merely surviving Gorian oppression to actively challenging it. As the council session concluded, Adam was escorted to quarters prepared for him aboard the Roxen vessel. Looking out at the stars through a small viewport, he thought about how drastically his life had changed in such a short time. Somewhere out there was Earth, unknowing and vulnerable. Somewhere else was Morgoth, where the Gorians were undoubtedly planning their next move. And here he was, caught between worlds, suddenly central to a conflict spanning the stars. Would he ever see home again? Would Earth remain safe from the mind control that had enslaved so many other worlds? Could the quiet resistance of the Free Roxen collective transform into something powerful enough to challenge the Gorian Empire? Adam didn't have answers to these questions. But as he watched the stars, he made a promise to himself. Whatever happened, he would not surrender. The Gorians had built their empire on the assumption that all minds could be controlled, all wills broken. His existence proved that assumption wrong, and that small truth might just be enough to change everything. The processing center in Morgoth's eastern quadrant had once been a model of Gorian efficiency. Thousands of slaves from a dozen species worked in perfect synchronization, their minds controlled by the MCR, their bodies serving the Empire without question or rest. Now, as Karis Wren conducted an inspection, he noted with growing alarm the subtle signs of deterioration. Criken laborers moved fractionally slower than regulation speed. Roxen technicians occasionally paused in their tasks, as if momentarily lost in thought. Even the Eotian overseers seemed less attentive, their reports less precise. Increase the MCR field strength by 20%. He ordered the facility director. Commander, we're already operating at 85% capacity. The director protested. The energy requirements. Did I ask for your concerns? Karis cut him off. Execute the order. The director hurried to comply, adjusting controls at the central command station. Throughout the facility, emitters hummed with increased power. The effect was immediate but disturbingly temporary. The workers' movements became more precise for several minutes, then gradually began to show the same subtle signs of resistance. Unacceptable, Karis muttered. His communicator signaled an incoming message. Commander Wren, came Terra Corps' voice. I request your immediate presence at the central laboratory. I made a breakthrough. Hope flared within Karis. Perhaps a solution was finally at hand. On my way, he responded, turning abruptly from the processing center inspection. When he arrived at the laboratory, Terra stood beside a complex apparatus that hadn't been there during his last visit. A spherical chamber surrounded by equipment he didn't recognize. What am I looking at, Dr. Core? Terra's expression was more animated than he'd seen in days. A prototype of what I'm calling the neural interface amplifier. Based on my analysis of the human's resistance patterns, I've developed a way to bypass the natural shields in their frontal lobes. You've solved the problem? The MCR can now control humans? Terra hesitated. Not exactly, Commander. The human resistance is too deeply integrated into their neural architecture for our standard broad-spectrum approach. Instead, I've developed a targeted system. It requires direct neural interface, physical contact, rather than broadcast waves. Karis frowned. That's impractical for large-scale control. For now, yes, Terra acknowledged. But it gives us a starting point. We can capture key human leaders, apply the direct interface, and use them to facilitate our eventual takeover of their planet. Karis considered this approach. It wasn't the comprehensive solution he'd hoped for, but it offered a path forward, a way to maintain the illusion of Gorian invincibility while they developed more permanent measures. How soon can we deploy this technology? I need to run several more simulations, but theoretical models show a 93% success rate. If those hold true in practical application, we could launch a targeted operation within one standard cycle. For the first time since the demonstration disaster, Kari's felt the weight on his shoulders lighten slightly. The situation wasn't ideal, but it was manageable. The Empire would adapt, as it always had. Proceed with the final testing, he ordered, and begin preparing an expeditionary force. We will capture their leaders, establish control nodes, and bring Earth into the Empire, just as we have done with every other world that dared to resist. As Kari's departed, Tara returned to her workstation. The data on her screens told more complex story than she had shared with the commander. The neural interface amplifier might indeed overcome human resistance, but its effects would be temporary at best, deteriorating rapidly as the subject's brain adapted. She had bought time, nothing more. But perhaps time was all they needed. Time to find a true solution, or time to prepare for a future where absolute control might no longer be possible. For the first time in her career, Tara found herself questioning the fundamental premise of Gorian dominance. If one species could naturally resist their control, might others eventually evolve similar defenses? Was the Empire's approach sustainable in the long term? Such thoughts bordered on heresy. Yet as she studied the human neural patterns once again, Tara couldn't escape the conclusion that they represented not just a temporary setback, but a fundamental challenge to everything the Gorian Empire believed about its place in the cosmos. On board the Roxanne vessel, now traveling through the outer reaches of what the star charts labeled the Cygnus Arm, Adam worked alongside alien scientists to understand his own neural resistance. The patterns are definitely hereditary, explained Kelvorin, the lead Roxanne neurologist. Your description of your grandfather's experience suggests the trait runs in your family line. Adam sat in a comfortable chair while sensors mapped his brain activity in real time. But you think all humans have some level of resistance? Based on our analysis of your genetic structure, yes. The trait appears to be part of your species-based neural architecture, though with varying strength among individuals. The implications were encouraging. If Earth faced Gorian invasion, at least some percentage of the population would resist immediate control. It might provide a critical window for organizing defense. How's the shield technology coming? Adam asked, referring to the project that had occupied most of the Roxanne technical team for days. Kelvorin's expression, as Adam had learned to read it, showed cautious optimism. Promising. By studying how your brain naturally deflects the MCR frequencies, we've developed a prototype device that mimics the effect. Initial tests show it can provide partial protection for Roxanne brain structures. Partial protection might be enough, Adam suggested. Even temporary resistance could create chaos in the Gorian control systems. Precisely our thinking, if deployed strategically across multiple worlds simultaneously. The ship's communication system interrupted their conversation. Kelvorin, Adam Pierce, came the voice of Captain Nixtalon. Your presence is requested in the command center immediately. They found the command center in a state of controlled urgency. Officers moved quickly between stations, and the main view screen displayed a security transmission of some kind. What's happening? Adam asked as they entered. Elder Vay Soren, who had apparently been aboard the vessel all along, turned to face them. We've received an encrypted transmission from our operatives within the Gorian capital. A new operation is being prepared, a targeted mission to Earth. Adam's heart sank. Already? But it's only been a few weeks since I escaped. The Gorians move quickly when threatened, Vasorn explained. According to our intelligence, they've developed a new technology, a direct neural interface designed specifically to overcome human resistance. Will it work? Adam asked, looking to Kelvorin. The scientist considered. Without examining the technology directly, I cannot be certain. But any approach requiring physical contact rather than broadcast waves suggests their standard MCR remains ineffective against humans. Small comfort if they can still take control of our leaders, Adam pointed out. What's their timeline? Vasorin gestured to the display. The expeditionary force is being assembled now. Launch is scheduled within days. They plan to capture key human authority figures, and establish control nodes across your planet. Adam felt the blood drain from his face. Earth had no warning, no defenses against such an attack. Even with natural resistance, they wouldn't understand what was happening until it was too late. We need to warn them. We need to get to Earth before the Gorians do. The Elder's 3 eyes blinked in sequence, a Roxan expression of concern. Our fastest vessels could potentially reach your system before the Gorian expedition, but we risk exposing our existence, our resistance network. Is there any other choice? Adam challenged. If Earth falls, the Gorians gain billions of new subjects and resources. Once they establish control, breaking it becomes nearly impossible. You know this better than I do. The command center fell silent as the Roxan leadership considered the dilemma. Their collective had survived for generations through caution, through calculated moves that never exposed their full strength. Finally, Captain Nixtalon stepped forward. I volunteer my ship and crew for this mission. We are already at the outer boundaries, closer to the Earth system than any other free collective vessel. Elder Vasorin studied the captain for a long moment. You understand the risks? If captured, the Gorians would extract the coordinates of our hidden worlds, our supply routes, our entire network. I do, Nixtalon confirmed. But as the human says, do we have any other choice? For generations, we have merely survived. Perhaps it is time to truly live, to take risks worthy of free beings. Vasorin turned to Adam. And you, Adam Pierce, are you prepared to lead us into your world, to face the consequences of bringing interstellar conflict to a planet that has known nothing of our struggles? Adam thought of his home, his family, his ordinary life that seemed so distant now. Earth remained blissfully unaware of the vast, complex galaxy beyond its atmosphere, the enslaved worlds, the mind control technology, the ancient conflicts. Revealing these truths would forever change his planet's understanding of its place in the universe. Yet the alternative was worse, to let Earth fall into Gorian hands without even the chance to defend itself. I'm ready, he said firmly. Earth deserves the opportunity to choose its own fate. The Gorians would deny them even that. Vasorin nodded solemnly. Then it is decided. Captain Nixtalon will adjust course for the Earth system immediately. We will dispatch messages to our other vessels, alerting them to the situation. The Free Collective emerges from the shadows, for better or worse. As the command center erupted into activity, Adam found himself drawn to the view screen displaying the distant stars. Somewhere out there was Earth, still peaceful, still unaware. And somewhere else, the Gorians prepared their expedition, confident in their technological superiority and manifest destiny. Two forces racing toward an inevitable collision, with Earth's future hanging in the balance. The galaxy held its breath, waiting to see which would arrive first, the warning or the invasion. And Adam Pierce, once an ordinary human caught in an extraordinary situation, now stood at the center of a conflict that would determine the fate of countless worlds. The tide had begun to turn. The question was, in which direction would it flow?